Mike, should I try mushrooms?
Should you try salvia
Oh,
though?
thanks for asking. I think, I mean, I there was a time in my life when I was more of a mushroom missionary or a missionary, if you will. You needn't, but like when I'm 43 now, and I think I did mushrooms for the first time when I was maybe 25, and I hadn't had a lot of
Oh, happy belated
I think I'd only
birthday!
yeah.
Yeah, happy
I
birthday.
forgot.
Thank you so
I
much.
was totally. We
That's
were extremely busy because we have been very busy lately, and meant to email you, but I forgot because I've been
Oh, well,
extremely
that's
busy.
very
But
nice
I
of
remember
you.
now. Yes, there you go.
I appreciate it, and a happy belated birthday or early birthday to both of you.
Thank you. It continues on forever.
So,
Sometimes never.
Oh, sure, sure. Which is, I mean, it's an appropriate topic to arise with respect to mushrooms. Here's a joke I wrote about mushrooms once: is sometimes for alcohol, people like drink alcohol and they're like, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and with mushrooms, I feel like it's every time, always. So. Yeah, I would.
I
My
knew
first
this and it's
experience.
so funny. So
Yeah, thank
Just-
you.
yeah.
With mushrooms, my first experience, I was at a music festival that I was performing at with my partner at the time, and I'd only just started having like I smoked pot for the first time and didn't really like it much, like pretty close to that time. But mushrooms I'd heard about, I'd sort of read about, their potentially therapeutic qualities, their, recreational, like laughter inducing qualities, their philosophical insight inducing qualities. And so somebody had them and we got them, and it was just it helped me in a way understand, like I didn't have a real rich spiritual life before that. Like I had been raised culturally Jewish. I was somewhere agnostic, atheist-ish leaning, and I'd read this book by Raymond Smullyan called This Book Needs No Title, and there was a part in it that was called Planet Without Laughter, I believe, and it was about a world in which most people had forgotten how to laugh or why laughter happened. And there were these like laugh masters, which were sort of analogous to Zen masters or, Buddhas that knew the secret, knew how laughter worked. And so imagine somebody who didn't understand why laughter happened, and how would you describe it to them because they were all like, oh, is it like this? Like, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Like, if somebody's fake laughing or just going through the motions of laughing, somebody who knows what true laughter is can tell. And the way to get someone to understand what true laughter is not to describe it acoustically or physiologically or physically at all. It's to in the story, some of these laugh masters would just like do backflips or say absurd things, and then sometimes people in the audience at their talks would be like, oh, I understand laughter now, and like some people would be like, oh yeah, me too, ha 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 ha. And so
you're German.
In that story, so I started
I'm
reading
sorry.
that. I read that
Excuse
story.
me, German people,
Oh,
but
no.
a lot of German people laugh like ha 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 ha. It's
And maybe that's a legitimate
just from my experience.
true laugh.
German people, a lot of them, not all of them, obviously, laugh like this. Yes. Please
Thank
continue.
you. So I first read this book and that story before I had ever done mushrooms, and so I remember the analogy. I understood the analogy was like, I understand what laughter is, but I can imagine people who didn't, and now I understand that I'm a person who doesn't understand the equivalent, whatever the thing that's analogous to laughter in our world, like some sort of mystical truth, some sort of spiritual reality, that I was like, I don't have a reference point for this. So I was like, it was like a beautiful story. I understood the story intellectually, but it was only till the first time I did mushrooms that I was like, oh, there's something ineffable about this experience, something indescribable about what I'm feeling, what I'm like, what I'm experiencing, that I was like, oh, this is what that story was pointing at. And I'm not saying that like I'm certainly not a divinely enlightened Buddhist master, but I know I had an experience that made me one unit of experience one unit wiser or less ignorant than I had been before when I hadn't had that experience. And so I think that, like, for some people, like if people are afraid to do mushrooms, if people don't want to do mushrooms, like at first I was like, everyone should do this. Everyone's got to do this. And like everyone is different and gets to make their own decisions. And some people might have different brain chemistries and physiologies that don't mesh well with certain mind-altering substances or psychedelics or what have you. So I would say before doing any new substance, I would say to do as much research as you can and to talk to people who have done it if you can, and see, if you, like when I do ayahuasca ceremonies, there are very specific like forms that get filled out that if you are on certain medications, they recommend don't do it because it will either not have an effect or have an adverse reaction because certain chemicals interact in certain ways. And so I do know that, like, for the most part, the studies about psilocybin mushrooms have been very positive as far as like being even treatments for depression or PTSD, like, and those would be like potentially in like laboratory settings with, controlled doses and perhaps like talk therapy in association with it as well. But this is all to say, like, I'm not saying that everyone should do mushrooms, but if you're the kind of person, and you are now the specific person asking the question, should I? It seems like if you are curious about it, if you are intrigued, if you are interested, I would say, you get to be the ultimate arbiter of whether you do it. But if you're the kind of person that's asking and interested, then do some research and then do some mushrooms, unless you don't want to.
What if my brain is likes to, let's just say, okay, so there's the scenario of going well and there's the scenario of not going well, and my brain, like a Schrodinger's brain, is going to like, oh, if there's two possibilities, then both are already happening. So it's also not going to go well. That's what I mean. Is that a thing?
If you have it in your head that it's going to go wrong, then it might go wrong. That happens a lot, like with acid, I think, more than with mushrooms. Like if you're on acid and
I'd like to try again.
And you're afraid that it is going to go wrong, then
I'm not afraid, but my brain will
a bad trip maybe.
I'm not afraid, but my brain will acknowledge that it's a thing that might happen, and because it might, then it's curious and it wants to go there, just to know.
I would say, number one, you could start your first time on a very small dose just to get a sense of how it will feel in your body, in your mind. One thing I would recommend also is if you could do it with someone who has done it before, has experience, or at least could be there like as a helpful guide, and that can talk you through whatever you're experiencing if you start to head in a quote-unquote bad trip kind of direction. Also, the fact that, if you have a bad trip and then it will end. It is almost all guaranteed that every experience that you have, like when I do ayahuasca ceremonies, the guide will sometimes say at the beginning, the effects come and the effects go. And that's the truth of every emotional experience that we've ever had, every thought we've ever had, except for the one that we're having right now. How did you exactly exactly 1 year ago? You don't know, because the experience of whatever emotional state you were in exactly 1 year ago is no longer the emotional state you're having now. It probably wasn't the next day. And so while there is this time dilation that can occur with psychedelics, and it might feel like I've definitely had the experience on mushrooms where I'm like, oh, is this forever? I think I did mushrooms one Halloween, one Spooktober, and I remember looking around and being like, why are there cobwebs everywhere? How long has this been? And they were just decorations. And eventually, I'm no longer in that situation. I'm in my home and I don't see any cobwebs, even though it's a different Spooktober. We've come around again. And know this going in, that the effects will come and the effects will go, and that like the same way that right now, like on a day where you don't do mushrooms, a day you could have a good day or you could have a bad day, or your day could be, full of like every moment has the possibility of like being better than the last or different than the last. And so I would say there's no greater reason to worry that a mushroom trip will be bad because it could be bad than it is to worry, will tomorrow be a day where I'm sad because it could be a day that I'm sad? Like, of course, it could be a day where you have more sadness than usual, but because you're mostly, I bet, not worrying about like, today you're not like, oh, 17 days from now, I hope that day isn't the saddest day possible. Like, so I would say, if you can like logically understand that it's basically the same thing for when you start doing mushrooms, it could be one way, it could be another way, just like every day, every moment could be one way or it could be another way. And to perhaps have some like sort of going back to when you asked me how I am or how doing I have been, and I answered in part by talking about drinking water, meditating, and writing, getting the, sort of setting intentions for the day, like doing some gratitude journaling, thinking about the things that I'm grateful for in my life that really help me like start the day on the foot that I want to, on the ideal brain heart foot, where because I might wake up like with swirling anxieties about like all the things I have to do today or the things I didn't finish yesterday or like whatever it might be, or the news or the happenings in the world. And so I mostly do all those things. I learned about you've heard of the formative years of your life. I learned from a guy named Alan Cohen wrote a book in which he talked about the formative minutes of one's life, or the formative minutes of each day. That like if you start each day like intentionally, like thinking about like not just immediately jumping into the stormscape of social media or online news or your whatever your to-dos are, if you can spend 10 minutes, whatever it is, meditating, exercising, yoga, praying, like just doing something intentionally that can be in the same way that the formative years of your life help determine like what your life is going to be like. If you are hopefully given enough food and care and shelter and clothing and love and attention in those times, then that will set you up for a greater success than if you don't have any food in your first couple of years of life. And so similarly, you can feed yourself the formative minutes of the beginning of your day by being like, how do I want to begin this day? If I can, with gratitude, if I can, with kindness to myself, with self-compassion, with, doing something that, feels good and present, like meditation for me, and just really like giving yourself that time. And so I say all this to say that could also be something that you do at the beginning of a mushroom experience if you decide to start, because it's not, after you eat them, it's not going to kick in immediately for the most part. And so you could spend time, listening to music that makes you feel the way you want to feel, engaging with the other person that's there, if there's another person there, and like, talking about things that you care about, things that you love, people and experiences and things that you find the best, and just sort of give yourself, they talk about the, set and setting, the mindset and the environmental setting that you find yourself in, either, geographically or emotionally. I guess emotional is the mindset. And so ideally you want to do it on a day where you feel like this could be a good day, this could be a good experience, and then build the structures around the experience that's about to happen to give it the best chance for success.
I'm interested in the this is kind of like mushroom therapy. It felt almost, but like I'm interested in the mushroom aspect, but I'm even more interested in the whole and the rest of what you said, the life tips. That those are the formative minutes is fantastic. But no, you were going to. You raised your hand earlier, like me. You were pointing at yourself.
No, I take a lot of medicine for mental health. So there's definitely some substances that I can't take, like anything that is a downer I cannot take, Psychedelics are like right there in the middle of like a little bit dangerous for like the next few days. Uppers is fine because I have ADHD, so like uppers is just makes me more like calm, so so that's fine. Sure. But I have a story about it being high for 48 hours on MDMA.
Oh,
because
that's a long time.
I thought it would never end. Like I cried at one point, like thinking this is never going to end, and I'm going to be stuck like this forever, and it just wouldn't go away. I just basically took too much, just crystals on the bottom of a glass, like, and then I drank it,
sure.
and then. Tying into your story about like going to the bathroom when you should go to the bathroom,
which we did, all of us, I think.
I was starting to dance and it was starting to kick in.
I may have to go again soon, but yes.
We won't take too much of your time more. It's been fairly long. I'm sorry not to cut you off.
No, like so like it started to kick in and I started to need to pee. And I was like, this is going to kick in so hard. Like, I can feel it, like, going to kick in so hard. I'm going to the bathroom now before I'm too high to do it. And so I went to the bathroom and I woke up 5 hours later having vomited and having passed out in the bathroom. And, like, when I left, it was 8 a.m., drenched in sweat, and wow. My friends were all looking for me, being like, where are they? Like, oh my god, like where did they go? And then I just like had to endure the rest of the basically like overdose kind of. I had to like endure all of it. It was funny at one point because like I just hung out like with everyone at the after party. And I was like, just like high, but I was too high, and it was just it wasn't like a bad trip or anything. It was just like too much of a good thing. It became a serpent.
Oh yeah,
it became a serpent. It became extra spice.
Yeah, but I'm glad that I went to the bathroom when I did. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah. If you're gonna vomit, the bathroom's a nice place to do it.
Yes.
I really avoid vomiting. It's just one of those experiences that I get really sick. Like, obviously
sure.
I do because I vomited, but just like I get really like physically. I feel like death, like for a long time until I vomit. And then that's why I got cold sweats, fever, like that.
I'm just like, I'm mildly indisposed, and like, I'm like, bleh.
And then I do it, and then I'm fine, and then I can do everything all over again. But I really avoid that particular state of being is just wretched. It just really, really sucks.
Literally, to retch is a verb that I think means to vomit.
Wretched.
So wretched is very appropriate.
I didn't know that actually because, well, not my first language, but wretched. Yeah, wretched vomited. Okay, wow, fantastic. I didn't know that. Now, absolutely applies.
One of the best Italian bands is called Wretched. Oh, so good. Everyone go listen to it.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a patch of them on my vest.
What is this genre?
Oh, it's just anarcho-punk.
Anarcho-punk.
Yeah.